What was the pettiest reason you refused to date someone? Every time I touched her, I would smell of egg. Like holding hands. Egg. Hug her. My shirt would smell of egg. Strangest bit was, she didn't smell like that whatsoever. Also, when I broke it off, the egg smelling stopped. So I DK. What? You egg? My mom stopped dating a guy because he unfastened and refastened the velcro on his shoes throughout an entire movie. Did he stomp his feet in the process and make them light up? Every time I took a bite of food he asked me a question. After which he started at me while I finished chewing. The date went on like this for an hour. He had a supernatural sense of poor timing. When I found out that he thought lemons were unripened oranges. Reminded me of my sister. That's a bonus where I'm from. He got a few consecutive bites out of my ice cream on our first date without asking me and before I even tasted my own ice cream. And didn't even offer his to me. This is not petty. He was telling you what you needed to know about him. I once had a dude grab an ice cream cone out of my hands and bite the bottom so he could get the chocolate bit in the bottom of the waffle cone. Not only did he take the best part from me without asking, but he also left me with a cone that was dripping melted ice cream, so I just threw it out. To this day, I wish I would have gotten out of the car and never spoken to him again. Every single text of her ended with, he tried to say what I was saying. As in at the same time. He started mouthing it and then slowly including more and more voice. I would stop talking and start again. Had the same first name as my brother and father. You should have married him and had him take your last name instead. So then there would be 3 of them. About 3 weeks in, I cooked dinner. It was the first time we had eaten dinner quietly at home as a date. His chewing noises drove me up the wall. I noped out after that. She once wanted a burger without chips. I wanted one with chips. She ate all of my chips. Her reason was that because I wasn't eating my chips because I didn't want them. I asked her if I didn't want then why did I order them? Her nostrils were ducking tiny. This is the first one I've seen that's worthy of a Seinfeld episode. Elaine. How are things going with that girl? Jerry. Oh. Gina? Yeah, that's over. Her nostrils were too small. How did she even breathe through those things? They did that thing where they inflect their voice upwards at the end of everything they say as if it were a question. After about 10 minutes talking to them I was completely done. First date with a guy. Went to a nice restaurant for dinner where he couldn't maintain conversation. Trying to get responses from him was like pulling teeth without Novocaine. That was bad enough until he stopped talking altogether and started texting me. From across the table. On our first date. Which he initiated. It was also our last date. Went on a blind date with a guy. Learned, while on that date, his last name was Moist. He was a police officer. Officer Moist. Someone refused to date me after they found out I wasn't a fan of rugby. To be fair, they were clear about what they wanted in a partner. You both better off. He wore a Bluetooth piece in his ear. The constant blue light blinking from the side of his head was too much for me. Another guy would text Dame instead of damn. It wasn't a typo either. It was every time. Everything was going great. Thought she was an amazing girl and we'd been seeing each other for 2 months. Go to her house for the first time and it was a little messy. But nothing to write home about. Then I go to the bathroom and put up the toilet seat. I don't think she'd ever clean the bottom of the toilet seat given how disgusting it was. From then on, the only thing I could think about when talking or being with her was that disgusting toilet seat. She had a nose job done, which is not a judgment on my part, but her pictures were of pre-nose job and she just looked very different in person. He was awful in a trivia game we were playing. I mean, really bad. Like it was his first day pretending to be a human on Earth and the aliens hadn't briefed him sufficiently. His hair was prettier than mine. She kept using the word redonkulous in normal conversation. I felt my soul dying every time I heard it. His name was Mark Hunt. Holding out for his brother Mike. Because of his name. His name was Bun. James Bun. If he was a rabbit, that's cute AF. I had to explain everything to a girl. Everything. I still don't know if she was exceptional stupid or tried to keep the conversation going and was just really bad at it. Do you remember the guy who acted like he didn't know what a potato was? Texting with her was exactly like that. Her house was disgusting. Old food everywhere and dishes piled up. Ashtrays with cigarettes piled up. Another one had ugly feet. Looked like she was throwing gang signs with her toes. He wouldn't stop calling me endearments like love and sweetheart. This was via WhatsApp before we had met in person. And even after I told him I didn't like it and to please stop. All the words in every text he sent were capitalized. Trust me. It got annoying. His tattoos. He had this god-awful Medusa looking thing on his right calf. I went on a hike with him and had to stare at that ducking tattoo for 2 solid hours. I ended it when we got off the mountain. His Medusa tattoo made your feelings turn to stone. I dumped my first boyfriend for holding my hand. Taking it way too far. I was 15. Obviously the concept of teenage pregnancy completely mystified me. She ate her peas one at a time. One word replies. Literally no effort at all. I had a woman I was flirting with tell me she couldn't date me because I hadn't gotten that first marriage out of the way. I wasn't sure I understood her correctly, but she explained. Because I was never married. She didn't want to be my first divorce. Seemed cynical, but I also felt I dodged a bad situation right up front. She asked me if I was a breakdancer while we were flirting, like it was something she was hoping for. His laugh. It was the weirdest sounding laugh I've ever heard. The first time I heard it I was like, nope. Can't deal with that for the rest of my life. His name was Mario and he was a plumber. Was at her place and said we'd order pizza. She literally went to the kitchen and came back saying she put the order in. Didn't ask what toppings I wanted. Any sides. Nothing. First date. He told me how he worked in real estate. Then proceeded to tell me about how he moves every 1-2 years. Because he is in real estate and finds deal apparently. Oh. And usually would move with whatever current girlfriend he was with. Regardless of his awesome real estate knowledge, the girl would always just be amazed in the great house he would find and want to move in. No. He said he'd do a full health check on any pets I had. I was pretty peeved at the implication that I might not be caring for them. Also, he wasn't a vet. Because she didn't drink. I am 18 months sober and that really makes me cringe these days. Not me. But someone refusing to date me because it's weird you don't have Instagram. On the first and only date, she chewed her food with her mouth open. It was so distracting I couldn't bear it. She took everything I said too literally. I like to joke a lot. And I had to explain to her every time that what I just said was a joke. It was never going to work. I didn't like his shoes. IDK, his shoes just bothered me so much I wanted to kick them out of my sight. His tongue was literally down my intestines and it was the worst first kiss that could happen to a human being. He also later disclosed that he had 21 cavities in his teeth. Oh boy. He was trying to steal your healthy teeth. Excessive energy use. He wore a horrible pink shirt with palm leaves on it. It looked like woven vomit. Would have been okay with that, but he thought it's the shitty because it was a designer shirt. He bought it second hand. He thought I'd be falling in love because it's a DS inner shirt and he can afford it. The attitude and his ego made me wave goodbye after 5 minutes of the date. We didn't even leave the train station. On our first and only date he wore his shirt with half the buttons undone, showing off a gold necklace. OP said, pettiest reason. She called someone a pompous. Nope. She didn't say he was acting pompous or that he was a pompous ass. He was a pompous. Too many compliments, and because there were so many it just began to feel fake. If someone puts you on that high of a pedestal, the only way is down. I told him I was watching Scrubs and he told me very proudly he was just like Dr. Cox. He asked me if I could please serve him some of the dish we were sharing instead of doing it himself. Prior to that, when we first met up, I genuinely thought I might have seen him before, so I told him so, and he replied jokingly, "Do you watch a lot of PRN by any chance?" Full stop. He was into TTY country music and refused to eat fruit or vegetables. Adult. Edit. No offense to those who like country music. Grown man who doesn't eat vegetables. That has to be in my top 5 biggest turn-offs. Most recently, they kept talking about going out to bars and drinking all the time. We had some common interests and things initially seemed promising. But then it seemed like they just kept talking about how much they liked alcohol, and then they would text at weird times because they'd been out all night, etc. She called a dude stupid and a defect only because his pickup line wasn't successful. I thought to myself that if she talks like that about someone she doesn't know, I don't want to know what she tells others about me behind my back. And cut it there. They didn't say yes when I asked them out. She really liked Disney and going on Disney cruises. I knew it would never work out. Because I asked her first and she told me she didn't like me. Then a few months later she asked me out because she realized she actually liked me. Edit. My first award, and it's because I rejected a girl when I was young out of pettiness. Damn. I dated a girl who would only eat children's food. Chicken nuggies. Burgers. Fries. Mac and cheese. She refused to try anything that wasn't American. It might sound silly, but one of my biggest joys in going out to eat and experiencing new cuisines. I knew I would never be able to do that with her. Long fingernails. Dated a friend of a friend. She was easily a 10/10. She jumped me and made out with me. Her version of kissing was sucking my lips until they were swollen red within a minute. I might be the only man alive who told her it's getting late. Went back to a girl's place, and it was absolutely covered in Penn State merch. I'm talking posters, blankets, jackets, candles, and a bunch of stuffed Nittany lions. I made up some excuse and bailed immediately. She was almost 30 and lived like a freshman with zero taste. I don't trust individuals with too much school spirit, and those who take holidays way too seriously. She couldn't stop talking about dinner etiquette and which fork guess when on the first date. Almost like an OCD. I ended up eating ice cream with fork and knife just to PSS her off. If it was for her dinner etiquette, I wouldn't have got stabbed by a steak knife. She said I was better than her ex. On the one hand, that's nice to know. On the other hand, please don't compare people to your exes. Especially so early. It's usually just weird. My best friend at the time asked me out, but I didn't want to date because she wasn't liked by most of my friends in high school. It's really sad because I didn't want to ruin my reputation around the school by dating my best friend, which could have ended up going somewhere, but now that's never gonna happen. This was almost 5 years ago and we're still pretty close. He didn't like coffee, reading, or watching movies. 3 of my favorite things. Met a girl that I thought was really cute and who was obviously into me. Like she would laugh a little too much at my jokes that weren't even funny. 2 things killed it for me. She posted on social media way too damn much for my liking. She adopted a kitten that turned out to be sick a few days later and she wanted to bring the kitten back to the shelter because of it. That's not the kind of person I want to be with if they're going to be that heartless. A guy on a dating app said he wouldn't date me because I didn't like oysters. On our way to see a movie for our first date, He accidentally ran over a cat. Edit. My first award. Thank you. I didn't expect this to blow up, so I'll add a little bit more. Running over the cat was completely accidental on his part. Although I did spot the cat before he did and said look out. He didn't really seem that upset about it. But it completely ruined the night for me. I'm the kind of person that will go out of my way to help animals. Even like a pigeon. So if the same level of compassion isn't there, it's never gonna work. Found out he played in a Christian rock band. Bad perfume. He didn't want to answer my undergrad thesis survey. Which was odd because we were on good terms and all. He even confessed to me on his birthday. Also really full of himself. Can't talk about anything but him. I had been in the classroom with her when she had a massive panic attack. I was 16 and it scared me to see a good friend like that, and I wasn't sure I could handle it if she had one while we were alone together. So when she asked me out, I said no and gave some pitiful explanation. Funny thing is, I learned more about them over the next year and she was amazing, so I asked her out later on. She said no with basically the same pitiful explanation. So I guess what goes around comes around. The Someone Thought Twilight is a great book. People always assumed we were together because we were both overweight. I just hated that everyone just assumed. That is why I never dated her. Same name as my ex. She loves modern country music. She was absolutely perfect. Nice body. Sweet personality. Good humor. Then I found out she had a foot fetish. Instant regret. About a month into dating a guy, he tried to argue with me that I played video games too much. He seriously worked at GameStop. So I pointed to the door and said just leave. I'm not dealing with this. Met a guy on a popular dating site. And we decided to meet up. He wanted to go to the small city where I worked. But I told him did not want to. My reasons were that I did not want people at work to see me going out with someone. And I knew my city too well that it would be boring for a date. He kept insisting on meeting up in my city. So I ghosted him. I just couldn't deal with someone who was so strong-willed. I did date him. He came to mine and I was cooking steak for dinner. Big, marbled, beautiful slices of tenderloin fillet. I asked him how he liked it cooked and he said well done. I gave him it medium rare and never called him again. He thought that Benjamin Franklin was a US president. No matter how many times I told him to look it up, he never believed me. Then had the audacity to tell me, well, at least you're pretty. Well, you have the brain of a mushroom. Soaked for my life. He offhandedly suggested we could make it work. At my 18th birthday party. After teaching me the fusion dance from Dragon Ball Z. We had been friends for like 8 years. She couldn't stop complaining about anything. She kept texting me. But after the first 2 texts she'd go on about having to iron clothes, help in construction and having back pains. Everyone can have a bad day. But she just never told anything positive and somehow still expected me to date her, lol. Also, it didn't help that I got a bunch of notifications a week after we last spoke of her liking old messages of mine in our Instagram conversation. She or someone on her phone just randomly scrolled back in our chat and liked these messages. I was quite weirded out. There weren't even any flirty messages. There weren't any flirty messages anyway because she was the most boring person I could possibly imagine, or anything. Just the most random messages you could think of. I was almost a senior in college before I realized that complaining wasn't actually conversation. My mom was a huge complainer, so I just grew up that way. She kept calling me dude. He would talk over me and try to educate me on nerd stuff that I've known as long as him. She had man hands. Otherwise a really great personality. An excellent sense of humor and a very attractive body. Could not do it. Very petty. Edit. Lol. Anna Kane. Archer is the best. Never saw Seinfeld because I was out meeting women with man hands. Thought my friends would make fun of me. Actually, I know a petty reason why I got dumped. Backstory on this man child. He spent months asking me out for just one date, even though I had already told him that I wasn't ready for any relationships. Anyways, I finally caved in, and about 3 months later I started noticing symptoms of pinworms. Digestive parasite that I probably got while sharing food. This idiot wanted to force me to let him lick my asshole, where the eggs of said pinworms are laid. I didn't want him to, for obvious reasons, on top of me not being much of an anal person. Idiot refused to listen. He licked my asshole, got pinworms, and then dumped me for giving him an STD. He has also admitted to never having a legitimate sex ed class. He got what he deserved for refusing to ducking listen, and I'm happy that he dumped me. Duck you, Sean. I don't know what the duck I just read, but I'm going sleep now. Good night. Too fat. We were nowhere near dating. But once a guy from a dating app called me fat because I had a treat for dinner instead of an actual meal. He continued to double down on it, suggested working out, etc., before claiming it was a joke and that it's how he jokes around with his friends. This was maybe a day after we matched and one of our first convos. I stopped talking to him and he kept trying for a bit. Edit. Honestly, this wasn't petty at all. He was a DCK. I just wanted to get this one off my chest. Edit 2. Clarification: also, I am also not even fat. I'm definitely on the skinny side of average. So I didn't completely take it to heart. Her husband was a cribby. He's so full of himself. When he was still courting me, I saw a photo of a girl as his wallpaper, so I asked who she was and he said she's the other girl that he was trying asking out. Lol. He was intelligent and courteous. But his voice, though, too slow paced and feeble. I wanted to hear what he wanted to say, but I preferred for him to write it instead. He tried way too hard. Let me explain. He had this mentality that all women wanted was money and lavish dates. I'm pretty laid back. Money spent isn't a big deal. Quality time and getting to know someone is. Date 1 was a super fancy restaurant, which was a fun experience, sure. But then suddenly it was love and gift bombing. Nope. Pettiest reason I was given: someone wouldn't date me? I'm too short and too young looking. I'm 5 feet tall. At the time I was 21 and did look very young, and dude wasn't much older than me, but did have the bearded lumberjack look to him. I was pretty disappointed at the time, but I get it. He'd have looked like a creep with me on his arm. The guy had shitty taste in anime. Always, and I mean always, asks why when I do something. I'm just gonna say it. Because she was fat. Although there's a little more to it than that. Got chatting to this nice girl on a dating site. She seemed very friendly. She used to go the same uni I was attending at the time. And her photo was quite cute. She said she was going to be in town. And if I wanted to say hello, then to come on down. I thought, why not? Made my way to the store she hung out at. I could recognize her through the window from across the street. And her photo was off by quite a few pounds. She didn't have many photos beside her face. But she didn't seem overweight by those. And nor do I have an issue with chubby girls. But she far beyond the chubby and into overweight territory. It didn't feel right going out with someone who was physically unattractive to me. And also dishonest about how she presented herself on her profile. I turned and walked away.